Welcome back. You're watching The Globe. International medical charity Doctors Without Borders, or Médecins Sans Frontières, has been calling on the Cameroonian government to lift the ban on providing free essential medical care in the restive Anglophone North-West region of the country after they were blocked more than 6 months ago. The government had accused MSF of being too close to separatists in the area. The conflict between Francophone and Anglophone Cameroon has seen more than 3,000 people killed since 2017. Now, a region called Ambazonia, also commonly referred to as Amba Land, is a self-declared state of Southern Cameroon's, the English-speaking part of Cameroon. And I caught up with the country's Vice President, Daney Yerinma, and he told me a little bit more about what the conflict was about and what he hopes will result in a resolution and independence for Ambazonia. Mr. Daney Yerinma, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the program. Vice President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Peter, for the opportunity to give the people of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia to tell the true story of what the media and the international community are missing in this conflict.
All right, perhaps we can begin with a historical context, because some people might not know where Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia actually is and what the history behind this territory and the ensuing dispute that you've had with Yaoundé for so many years. Let's start there, perhaps.
Well, thank you so much once again. I would like to start by correcting the misconception of the conflict as a separatist movement. The Southern Cameroons are not separatists. That's the people of Southern Cameroons are not separatists. We are a restorationist and pro-independent movement. The conflict is between the French La République du Cameroun and the former British Trust Territory, the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. So it's not between the Francophone and the Anglophone populations. The conflict is not a language issue between the French and the English, as wrongfully portrayed. The conflict is because of the incomplete decolonization of the former British territory of Southern Cameroons. So Southern Cameroons became part of Cameroon on the 1st of October 1960 as two states of equal status. And however, the people of Southern Cameroons were not fairly treated by the French-speaking government under this federation. And following a referendum on the 20th of May 1972, a new constitution was adopted in Cameroon, which replaced the federal state with the unitary state, the United Republic of Cameroon. So Southern Cameroon lost its autonomous status and became two provinces in La République du Cameroon through a presidential decree. And since then, our people have experienced a lot of marginalization. We had the Cameroon Anglophone movement, which came up and demanded greater autonomy or independence of the two provinces. And then we also had representatives of Anglophones group convened first in Boya on the 2nd of April, 1993, in a conference, that is the All Anglophone Conference 1. And the Boya Declaration called for constitutional amendments to restore the 1961 Federation. And this was also followed by a second All Anglophone Conference in Bamenda in 1994. And this conference issued the Bamenda Declaration, which stated that if the federal state was not restored within a reasonable time, Southern Cameroons will declare its independence. So the AAC, the All Anglophone Conference, was renamed the Southern Cameroon's People's Conference, SCPC, and later the Southern Cameroon's People's Organization, SCAPO, with the Southern Cameroon's National Council, which I'm a member, as the executive governing body. And later on, younger Southern Cameroonian activists, they formed the Southern Cameroon's Youth League in Boya on the 28th of May, 1995. Well, the SCNC sent a delegation led by John Bufoncher to the United Nations, which was received on the 1st of June, 1995, and presented a treaty against the annexation of the Southern Cameroons by French Cameroon. So Ambazonians, in summary, voted to federate with La République du Cameroun in an aggregative federation constituted by the territories of two countries equal in status. French Cameroon abolished the agreement and annexed Ambazonia, triggering a chain of events that has ended up in the ongoing war to liberate Ambazonia from French Cameroon annexation, repression, terrorization, and imperium. And presently, I'll tell the audience that a genocide is going on in Southern Cameroon.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's been happening over the years. The Cameroon military and authorities seem to be at the front of some of the abuses that you're talking about. Tell us what has been happening typically to the people of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia.
French Cameroon troops are garrisoned in several localities in Ambazonia, from Victoria to Messager. Messager is one of the border villages to Nigeria. What they do is they don't fight, and when they go on indiscriminate shooting sprees of civilians, our national liberation fighters challenge them, and that is when they fight. Otherwise, they mainly engage in systematically killing and assassinating civilians. They also specialize in the massacre of young persons, women, including pregnant women and children, including school children and toddlers. They systematically rape women and girls, infecting them with HIV and AIDS and other STDs, like in the case that we recorded in GBHS, that is a government bilingual high school in Minankwe, since the prevalence of this disease amongst the troops is at least 40%. They also habitually sodomize boys. These acts seldom come to limelight because victims are too traumatized to tell the story. Many die in silence. Some commit suicide. This makes it difficult for us to have statistics on these occurrences. Other specialization of those troops, the troops of La République du Cameroun, is stealing, breaking into shops and banks, looting, plundering. It is their practice to kidnap for ransom. They go into a locality, they round up people, take them to their garrison or camp, and demand for relatives and parents to pay ransom for each person as a condition for release. Well, these troops tell anyone who cares to listen that they've been given a free hand to do in Ambazonia as they please, and they are bent on making much money as they can before they leave. They systematically burn down homes. More than 500 of our villages have been burned down. They burn down hospitals. They burn down other health facilities. They burn down educational facilities, and they destroy livestock, foodstuff, crops in the fields, and they are trying to impose starvation and other conditions that of life leading to death for our people. And they also kill, when they kill civilians, they use them to poison water because they throw these dead bodies into streams and waters that the rural areas and semi-urban areas use for their livelihoods as water for drinking and bathing. And today we have almost 1 million people displaced. They are living as IDPs, and you have close to 1 million also in Nigeria, in refugee camps, and in Ghana, and also the Mexican border. And in total, more than 30,000 of our people have been killed in this war, and it's a genocide. The world doesn't want to call it the way it is, but a genocide is going on in our territory.
You said that they operate with a free hand. Does this mean that President Paul Biya knows that this is going on and somehow gives permission for these abuses?
That is correct. The president knows about it. Just recently, a few days ago, Jibril, he's from the same area, the same village like myself, was shot dead at the Foncha Street Junction by the military. And it raised an outroar of the crowd. The crowd came out and destroyed that checkpoint that was set up by the military in retaliation for killing Jibril. May his soul rest in peace. And when they realized that we put out a message about these rampant killings by the military of La République du Cameroon to the international community, if you saw the report from the Cameroon military, it's just like it's a joke. They said it was served a court notice that he has not respected, and that is why they killed him.
Wow.
I mean, that is kind of like a flimsy excuse to some of the actions that they commit in our territory, because they know that the international community somehow is going to hold them accountable.
What do you say to people that say, but hang on, the separatists, as they describe you, are also committing some atrocities and some abuses in the region?
Well, what I'll say is this. There are some groups organized by members of the regime in Yaoundé, which are in our territory. They are not military, but as they are armed groups organized by members of the military, members of the cabinet of La République du Cameroon. There are some who are called the Hatanganji boys. They are scattered all over the territory, and their intention is to commit these atrocities and pin them on our restoration forces. They've been engaged in kidnappings for ransom. They've been engaged in assassination and killings of our people, raping of women and girls. And they are doing all this to pin on our people. We have taken a position to be able to educate our restoration forces on how they are supposed to act on the battlefield. And I believe that it was, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, when we got news that some delegates were abducted and taken to an unknown location. We put out a communique on how they are supposed to act responsibly on the battlefield, because we understand the consequences that may come after this. So, there's the international law that has to be respected when you are involved in activities of this nature.
We're speaking about places like the International Criminal Court, I'm guessing. Let's talk a little bit about what political autonomy might look like and independence for Ambazonia, particularly when we start to consider your neighbors, Nigeria, for example. How do you see that playing out? I know that there was always this thorny, sticky issue of places like the Bakassi Peninsula.
Well, thank you again for this question. Well, as we wage this existential war for our independence to correct the wrong done to our people in 1961, our goal is to get a place under the sun to determine our own lives and the lives of our children after close to 200 years of colonial subjugation under the British, like I explained before, the Germans, then the British again, and now France and French Cameroon. Peter, our goal is freedom. Our fundamental rights to freedom, to choose our friends and to live as good neighbors. And in doing so, we neither seek an inch of territory nor a drop of water from any of our three neighbors. You see, Ambazonia intends to become a progressive democracy with well-defined and nurtured, good enough governance institutions and egalitarian society for every person that lives in it. If you look into our economic blueprint, it offers ample opportunities and enabling environment for capacity building and enterprises that engender livelihood security, prepare our citizens as both positive shapers and makers of local and international development goals. So, our economic and geopolitical strategy will be to naturally align with the ECOWAS bloc of nations and Nigeria in particular. Nigeria is the most populous and biggest economy in the continent, and this will present Southern Cameroon's a huge market for its agro-industries and other economic activities. There are more than 2 million Nigerians in Southern Cameroon as we speak. And we have figured and worked out some specifics on economic and geopolitical strategy for interacting with Nigeria and French Cameroon after our liberation. And that strategy will be ruled out when we get to Boya in a short while from now.
All right.
On the Bakassi,
let's talk a little bit about a final solution then. Does France have a role to play, given the influence that it has with French Cameroon and President Paul Biya?
Well, I'll say this. France is not only an instigator. France is the driver of the French Cameroon colonization agenda since 1961. They are controlling and dictating events at every turn. On its own, French Cameroon would not have had the audacity to pursue this colonial agenda. And the irony is that Ambazonia was never a colonial territory of France. Ambazonia has never had ties of any nature with France. But France is seeking to have unimpeded access to our natural resources and to expand its spheres of influence by the addition of 8 million people to its French Equatorial Africa. Historically, I'll say France sees its foothold on Ambazonia as somewhat compensation for Britain's seizing of Quebec from France, as incorporating it as part of Canada. So France plays a major role in instigating everything that has been or has happened in former British Southern Cameroon, from the independence vote at the United Nations on April 21st, 1961, through the 1961 Fumban meeting, the work of the French consular service in Boya in Southern Cameroon from 1962, the 1972 reduction of former British Southern Cameroons to 2 provinces of La République du Cameroon, and the 1984 unilateral return to the name of French Cameroon at independence. And this current genocidal war on our people is modeled after the French colonial war in Algeria. You see, France has a role in enabling and instigating the Cameroon government to suppress and assimilate the people of Southern Cameroon. So French colonial history has been that of assimilation. It's not a coincidence that the United Nations Resolution 684 specifically called on France to act upon her former colony of Cameroon to end the conflict and engage in genuine and inclusive dialogue. And this crisis is deliberately an aftermath in the Francophone media. Hence, the response to the crisis has been calculatedly subdued. So we are so grateful that America is taking action, and America has sent another strong message to the French government of La République du Cameroon when the Secretary of State of the United States announced travel bans to members of the government of La République du Cameroon who will not help in facilitating or help in looking for a permanent solution to this crisis.
Mr. Yerinma, as we start to wrap up this conversation, is independence the only solution, or is there a middle ground between Ambazonia and Yaoundé?
Well, again, Peter, as a servant leader, that determination will be done by the people. But personally, I think independence is the only way to permanently resolve and restore peace between the two systems, because the two systems are incompatible. You know, the trust between the people has been irreparably shattered. Our forebears tried the middle ground for a federation, but the incompatibility and distrust within the system and the people cumulated to the present predicament. So I believe, Peter, another middle ground this time around will be simply passing the war and hostilities to the next generation. And regarding the restoration of our statehood, which is rooted in our history and geography, there are many people amongst La République who do not care and understand, while others understand and disagree. You know, a few others understand and they support our quest for restoration. But however, it is important that we as Ambazonians understand the limits to which the people of La République, however well-meaning, they will want to empathize with our experience. But if truly they listen to our calls for equality and development, we might have avoided the ongoing genocide and the inevitable hurt, pain, destruction, and ultimate separation that is going to take place. So the pain of the experience of our people, the former British Trust Territory of Southern Cameroon, now known as Ambazonia, through many decades of oppression and subjugation, is very real and deep. And, you know, the good in most people will always outweigh the evil. And this is how we as a people learn to trust and forgive our people. But I'll candidly say this. Most Ambazonians, through the surveys of late Cardinal Tumi and the coalition of dialogue and negotiation, now accept that we cannot live with La République du Cameroon in any form.